Let's also talk about Kid Kash. He's making headlines again. He's going to do an interview where he says that he's turned down a developmental offer with WWE multiple times because after all he's done in wrestling, he doesn't think he should be signing developmental deals at this point in his career. And he also points out that he neither hates nor respects AJ Styles because AJ has developed an attitude and he's made a fuss about other wrestlers stealing his moves when in fact he claims he and Billy Kidman created all those moves. And he also says, matter of fact, Kid Kash, I'm the top heel in TNA because fans will pay to boo me, but they only boo Jeff Jarrett because they're sick of seeing him. And by the way, old Double J, he didn't do any long-term selling in that pay-per-view ladder match he had with Jeff Hardy. I just got to ask, Jeff. It feels like every week we're talking about something else that Kid Kash said that was out of pocket, either about TNA or about you personally. How does this dude keep a job?
You know what? When I read the research, for whatever reason, the old Dutchman I don't say a quote, but his mindset on this. Hell, Jeff, you know all the wrestlers in the dressing room are knocking you. At least Kash has enough balls to make it public. Let's go do something with him. Kash was Kash. He came to work. He busted his ass. He didn't mind being vocal about what he believed and what he didn't believe. I'll say the world we live in today, social media, I'll just say it, a very thin-skinned society. Kash, boy, it'd been very tough for him.
Well, that's what I was getting at. I mean, I appreciate that you guys kept him going. He was one of my guilty pleasures. I love watching that dude work. I think he's great, and I like this approach. But I do think, man, there's no chance he'd do that in WWE. And I like that that means there is an opportunity to do it here. I mean, that makes it feel even more underground, more renegade, more believable. Like I buy into that and I like it, but it feels like, we've created almost an environment where everybody's got to kind of toe the line. And if they don't, maybe their career will suffer because I can't help but wonder if Kid Kash was just a little more political, maybe if you had a little less Cash and a little more Jarrett in him. I mean, what was the limit for that guy? He could have done it all if he'd have played the game a little bit, right?
He knew, however you want to say it, how to connect with the audience emotionally.
Yes.
I mean, that unfortunately, that's few and far between. And as you can look, I'm saying this kind of set of circumstances again, that as time went on, we started on Wednesday night, the Wild Wild West, and got a little bit more sophisticated going to Orlando and Fox Sports. And then we got Spike 1 hour and then 2 hour. And then they kind of started leaning in on, hey, if we're going to attract sponsors. So we kind of grew up and dressed up and a little bit more attention to detail on maybe political bandwidth as time went on. And that to me was either a good trait or a bad trait of mine. I would have conversations, yes, with my father, yes, with Dallas, with Dixie, with people in the office that you just kind of, it was such I'm going to go back to, man, I'm beating that word to death today too. The juggling act of just keeping the fans engaged. Did we do everything right? No, but we kept growing. There's no doubt about that. We absolutely kept growing each year up through 2010.
Let's talk a little bit about Hector Garza. There's a lot of discussion here in the Observer about Hector. I keep wondering why, if TNA wants to push Hector Garza so much, why don't they put together a music video showing him as a superstar in Mexico? Because he always comes across as such a big deal in the Arena Mexico shows. Dusty Rhodes has decreed that Hector is going to be his Latin star, which is why he pinned AJ Styles on TV. The match was okay, but not a great breakthrough performance. The weakness was the finish. On the December 17th show, when he faced Jarrett in a non-title match, I can't even comprehend the booking. Either way, he's been critical of the booking, but he's talking about how we're really pushing Hector Garza here. He is a Dusty Rhodes favorite, and he's even trying something new where we've got Moody Jack joining Mike today in order to do commentary, and he's doing commentary in Spanish. And that's something that I guess Dusty had seen down in Florida. He wanted to bring it here. It sounds like it would be a crazy idea, but I remember actually liking it. What do you remember about Dusty falling in love with Hector Garza here?
Well, he wasn't the only one. Dixie, and look, I loved Hector just as a talent. There was an initiative that actually started, I don't want to say day one, but year one for sure, from the pay-per-view companies that were heavily, when we would have different calls and meetings about marketing and, in those days, the spots, and then when we went monthly, then you have a spot that's due 3 months in advance, and then you can do round 2 and round 3, all this. But just about every time we heard conversations from those folks, it was, hey, how are we servicing the Hispanic audience? They are they index way above what they should on buying pay-per-views. So we were always sensitive, on the lookout, trying to figure out how to monetize that simply. I mean, the X Division, not that it was the only reason, but a strong reason is, hey, this is partly our version of Lucha Libre, and it's got a mix of this and that and all this. But Hector was a guy that when he showed interest and said or indicated to us that, hey, man, I can do both. I can work in Mexico and come up, that we kind of, in our world, went pedal to the metal with him. And Dusty, no doubt, because Hector could work. He could work his ass off.
We've got a note in the Observer about Elix Skipper. He was interviewed after his legendary cage walk, and he reminded us in that interview that he was sweating and bleeding and had just taken a power bomb off the cage when he did this walk. He even says when he first started the walk, he slipped, but he was in tears after the match because of the long and just overwhelming ovation from the crowd. And he even said that move had been years in the making, that he wanted to do it 17 months ago for the very first America's Most Wanted Triple X cage match, but he was talked out of it back then. We covered this episode not too terribly long ago. I still think it is the number one most memorable moment in TNA history. Do you remember him wanting to do it before he actually did it, or is this the first you're hearing of that?
Do you know that's the first time I've read that in the research, and that he did an interview? I don't recall any. I'm sure there was a few, but I don't remember any place where I could say, yeah, Elix was quoted here or there. It kind of put a smile on my face that not only did he want to do it this night, but hell, it's a 17-month kind of journey for him to do it. And then to those 4 guys, or 5 guys, just when I kind of look at tag team wrestling from day one in TNA through 2010, and kind of look at not just the progression, but the highlight matches. We're going to talk about one later in this pay-per-view that I vividly remember different folks coming up to me, and I was a little bit perplexed, like, didn't you see this in the Asylum a few different times? But no, Elix doing the move and wanting to do it, and those guys, man, God bless James Storm and Chris Harris. They were such the glue of the tag division coming up. They were the ultimate baby faces who knew how to tell a story, wanted to be the baby faces, kind of put the heels in position to be true heels, and fought from underneath. Man, the people during this time frame, they absolutely loved AMW.
Around this same time, we're going to start getting a replay. So Fox Sports Net is not just going to show the Impact program on Fridays. They're also going to start doing a weekly Saturday night at midnight replay. When you find out that you're getting a replay, that's got to be a vote of confidence, right?
And this is something that it's funny, it's touched on at this time frame. And I'll say within the first month, when the overnights would come in, and maybe the first call that we got from FS1, Fox Sports, now called FS1, that they were happy with the ratings, they said right then, hey, man, we're going to kind of search around and figure out if we can't get a national replay involved in this. It was contractual in there. They could have run it 30 times if they wanted. And look, there were certain markets that were never reported about that certain regional networks, if they had an hour open, they could choose to run it, and they did. We wanted that thing run out there, and I know there was a time when we only wanted to have one replay, and I don't remember all the ins and outs, but yes, when we got the Saturday night replay, we knew that, okay, just more audience.